The board meeting was 3 minutes away when Sloane Mitchell realized she'd made the stupidest mistake of her career. It wasn't the coffee she'd spilled on the VP's shirt last week. It wasn't sending that sarcastic email about her boss to the wrong chat. This was worse, much worse, because Declan Rhodes, Seattle's most feared CEO, the man who made veteran executives cry in budget meetings, was standing in the conference room doorway with a black folder in his hands, and that expression that meant someone's getting fired today. And that someone apparently was her. Miss Mitchell. His voice cut through the air like a guillotine. A word now. Sloane swallowed hard. 28 years old, MBA from Columbia, 3 years at Rhodes and Associates without a single formal warning until last night, until that cursed corporate party. She followed him to his office, a minimalist space on the 42nd floor with views of Puget Sound, Scandinavian furniture that cost more than a car, and zero tolerance for incompetence. Declan closed the door with a soft click that sounded like a death sentence. Sit. Sloane sat, crossed her legs, uncrossed them, crossed them again. Declan leaned against the glass executive desk, arms folded, ice-blue eyes fixed on her like a medical laser, searching for cancer cells. At 36, the man looked like he'd been genetically engineered to intimidate people. 6'3", sculpted angular jaw, perfectly groomed dark hair, Italian suits that cost more than her Capitol Hill rent. "You lied to a client," he said, cutting straight to it. Sloane's stomach dropped like an elevator with a severed cable. "Sir, I can explit. Richard Peaton, managing partner at Peaton Industries. You told him at yesterday's corporate holiday party that you're married." "Oh, that." Sloane had hoped the conversation had gotten lost somewhere between the crab cakes and the 20-year scotch. Apparently, the universe had other plans. "Technically," she began, searching for the right words, like someone searching for a weapon in a shootout. "It was more of a defensive social strategy." Declan raised one eyebrow. One eyebrow. The man could express Olympic-level skepticism with a single facial muscle. "Defensive social strategy," he repeated, as if tasting each syllable and finding them all terrible. "Mr. Peaton was being persistent, asked for my number 7 times, followed me to the bar, made comments about ambitious young professionals in an extremely questionable way." Sloane took a breath. "So I said I was involved, married to someone extremely jealous and possessively territorial. And he believed you?" "He's 72 with 3 double scotches in his system. He'd have believed me if I'd said I was an astronaut." For the first time since she'd known him, Sloane thought she saw a muscle twitch at the corner of Declan's mouth, but it must have been the light or a stroke. Declan Rhodes didn't have a sense of humor. He had performance review metrics and brutally high expectations. "The problem," Declan said, picking up the iPad from his desk, "is that Mr. Peaton was delighted with your stable marital situation, said it demonstrates maturity, responsibility, exactly the kind of person he wants managing his $50 million account." Sloane blinked. "That's good? It would be if it were true." "Oh, he wants to meet your husband." "Oh, no." Declan slid the iPad toward her. On the screen, an email from Richard Peaton, sent at 6:47 that morning. "Wonderful meeting young Sloane yesterday. I have a charity dinner next Saturday. I insist she and her husband join me as my guests. Afterward, we can discuss managing the account." Sloane read the email twice, then 3 times. The words didn't change. "Next Saturday?" she said weakly. "That's 9 days away." 8, Declan corrected, glancing at the Rolex on his wrist. "It's 9:14. Panic started bubbling in her chest like bad champagne. $50 million, the biggest account the firm had ever landed, and everything depended on her showing up with a husband who didn't exist. "I could hire an actor," she suggested desperately. "Peaton's not an idiot. He'll ask questions, verify details. This man survived 3 hostile takeovers and an insider trading scandal. He knows when people are lying to him." "So what do I do? Confess? Tell him I invented an entire marriage because the client was being a creepy corporate predator?" Declan went silent for a moment, a long, heavy silence, the kind that precedes terrible decisions. Then he sighed, a sound so rare Sloane almost fell out of her chair, and said the most insane thing she'd ever heard in her life. "You're going to marry me." Sloane blinked. Once, twice. "Excuse me, what?" "Temporarily, on paper, for the dinner." Declan spoke as if describing a particularly boring Excel spreadsheet. "Peaton knows my reputation, knows I don't tolerate personal scandals. If you're married to me, he won't question it."
This is crazy. This is a practical solution to a problem you created. Sloane opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. She looked like a goldfish having an existential crisis. And after the dinner, amicable divorce, irreconcilable differences. You keep the account, I keep my reputation intact. Everyone wins, except for the part where I have to pretend to be married to you. Declan leaned forward, planting his hands on the desk. His eyes met hers with an intensity that made the air in the room electrically charged. Miss Mitchell, you have two options. Accept my proposal and save your career, or I'll accept your resignation letter now, and you can try explaining in future job interviews why you were dismissed from Rhodes & Associates for client fraud. Sloane's heart pounded like a bass drum at a rock festival. This was insane, absurd, completely unethical, and probably illegal in at least 3 states, but Declan Rhodes stood there waiting for an answer with that implacable expression.
That didn't accept no as a viable option, and $50 million was a lot of zeros. Fine, she heard her own voice say, as if it belonged to someone else. I'll marry you. Declan nodded, pulled a folder from the drawer, and slid it across the desk. Excellent. Sign here. The civil ceremony is tomorrow at 3 p.m. Bring a witness. And Sloane? Yes, starting now you live with me. Petton's meticulous. If he discovers we live separately, the deal falls apart. Sloane opened the folder. Inside, a 20-page prenuptial agreement, an already filled marriage license, and a key with a minimalist silver keychain. You planned this, she said in disbelief. You already knew I'd accept? Declan adjusted his tie. A precise, controlled, irritatingly confident movement. Miss Mitchell, I don't accept mistakes. Not mine, not yours. Now get to work. We have 8 days to convince a paranoid billionaire that we're a couple in love. He turned back to his computer, dismissing her as if he hadn't just blown her life into 1,000 pieces. Sloane stumbled out of the office, the folder burning in her hands. Somewhere in the distance, she heard a coworker's laugh, the hum of air conditioning, the normal sounds of an office on a normal day. But nothing, absolutely nothing, was normal, because in less than 24 hours, she'd be married to Declan Rhodes, living with him, pretending to be madly in love with the man who considered emotions a character flaw. Sloane looked at the key in her hand. What have I done? She whispered to the indifferent universe. The universe, as always, didn't respond. 24 hours later, Sloane stood in front of Seattle's King County Courthouse, wearing a cream-colored dress she'd panic-bought at Nordstrom during her lunch break, and wondering if this was how criminals felt right before committing fraud. Probably not. Most criminals didn't have their accomplice standing beside them, looking like he'd stepped out of a Tom Ford advertisement. Declan Rhodes checked his watch for the 3rd time in 5 minutes. Your witness is late. She'll be here. Sloane clutched her purse like a life preserver. Traffic on I-5 is a nightmare right now. Everything is a nightmare right now, he muttered, then caught himself. Apologies, that was unprofessional. Sloane blinked. Had Declan Rhodes just apologized? Maybe she was having a stress-induced hallucination. Maybe she'd passed out in her apartment and this entire situation was just an anxiety dream. A silver Tesla screeched into the parking lot, and Sloane's best friend, Nadia Castellanos, exploded out of the driver's seat like a tornado in designer heels. I'm here, don't get married without me. Nadia sprinted across the courthouse steps, her dark hair flying behind her. She skidded to a stop in
front of them, breathless. Sorry, client meeting ran long. Also, I brought champagne for after because apparently we're celebrating your descent into madness. This is Nadia, Sloane said weakly. My witness and moral support system. Nadia extended her hand to Declan with the confidence of someone who'd never been intimidated by anyone in her life. Nadia Castellanos, corporate attorney. I reviewed your prenup last night. Thorough work, though. Clause 17 is unnecessarily punitive. Declan's eyebrow twitched. Clause 17 protects both parties in the event of someone actually catching feelings, which would be hilarious given the circumstances. Nadia grinned. Don't worry, Ice King. Your assets are safe. Sloane's not interested in your money. Nadia, Sloane hissed. What? It's true. You're terrible with money anyway. Last month you bought a succulent subscription service. They send different varieties each month. You killed all of them. Declan cleared his throat. Shall we? The ceremony took 11 minutes.
11 minutes to sign away her independence, her privacy, and any remaining shred of dignity she'd been clinging to since yesterday's meeting. The officiant, a tired-looking woman named Carol who clearly performed about 40 of these per day, droned through the legal requirements with all the enthusiasm of someone reading a tax code. Sloane repeated words she didn't fully process, her brain stuck in a loop of "this is insane, this is insane, this is insane." Declan's responses were crisp, emotionless, delivered with the same tone he probably used to approve quarterly budgets. "You may kiss the bride," Carol announced, already reaching for the next couple's paperwork. Sloane froze. Declan froze. They had somehow forgotten this part would happen. "It's customary," Carol added impatiently, "though not legally required." "Right," Declan said. "Right," Sloane echoed. They stood there like two robots who'd forgotten how human interaction worked. Nadia coughed loudly. "Today would be nice, people." Declan leaned in. Sloane closed her eyes. His lips brushed hers for exactly 1.3 seconds. She counted. Cool, professional, completely devoid of anything resembling emotion or passion. It was like being kissed by a very attractive filing cabinet. "Congratulations," Carol said flatly, handing them the marriage certificate. "Next." And just like that, Sloane Mitchell became Sloane Rhodes. Well, technically Sloane Mitchell Rhodes, because she'd insisted on keeping her name for professional reasons, and also because changing her email signature to match a fake marriage felt like a bridge too far. Outside the courthouse, Nadia popped the champagne bottle with the efficiency of someone who'd clearly done this before. "To the happy couple." She poured 3 glasses into disposable cups she'd brought. Number. Delete it from your contacts under my name and save it as husband or something appropriately convincing. Also, the movers will arrive at 9 a.m. sharp. Please be ready. She stared at the message, then at the massive diamond on her finger, then at the marriage certificate on her coffee table. This was real. This was actually happening. She was married to Declan Rhodes, living with him starting tomorrow, pretending to be in love for the next however many weeks it took to close the Peyton deal. Her phone buzzed again. "Also, do you have any food allergies? The chef needs to know for meal planning." The chef? Of course he had a chef. Sloane typed back, "No allergies. And seriously, meal planning?" The reply came instantly. "I don't do anything halfway, Sloane. You'll learn that quickly enough." She threw her phone onto the couch and resumed packing, trying very hard not to think about what learning that quickly enough might entail. The ring caught the light from her window, sending little rainbows across the cardboard boxes. Beautiful, expensive, completely fake, just like everything else in her life for the foreseeable future. Sloane grabbed another box and kept packing. Tomorrow, her real life began, or her fake life. At this point, she honestly couldn't tell the difference anymore. Declan Rhodes lived in a penthouse that made Sloane's apartment look like a storage closet. The elevator opened directly into his living room because apparently when you were rich enough you didn't need hallways, and Sloane stepped out into what could only be described as architectural intimidation. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Elliott Bay, marble floors so polished she could see her reflection, furniture that looked like it belonged in a museum, not a home. Everything was pristine, minimal, aggressively expensive. It looked exactly like nobody lived here. Miss Mitchell, a woman in her 50s, appeared from somewhere, dressed in neat gray slacks and a crisp white blouse. "I'm Patricia, Mr. Rhodes' house manager. Welcome." House manager, not housekeeper, because of course Declan had a house manager. "Thank you," Sloane managed, suddenly very aware of her jeans and Columbia hoodie. "Please call me Sloane." "Of course." Patricia's smile was warm but professional. "Mr. Rhodes is in a conference call, but asked me to show you to your room. The movers already brought your belongings up." Your room, not our room. The reminder that this was all business settled in Sloane's chest like a stone. Patricia led her down a hallway lined with abstract art that probably cost more than Sloane's college education. Here we are. The guest room was bigger than Sloane's entire previous apartment. A king-sized bed dominated one wall, dressed in hotel-quality linens. A sitting area with a velvet couch faced another wall of windows. There was even a small desk setup with a brand-new laptop. Mr. Rhodes thought you might want a dedicated workspace, Patricia explained. The Wi-Fi password is on the desk. Your bathroom is through that door. I've stocked it with essentials, but if you need anything specific, just let me know. Sloane's boxes sat stacked neatly in the corner, looking shabby and out of place next to all this elegance. This is incredible. Thank you. Dinner is at 7. Mr. Rhodes prefers to eat together on weeknights when possible. Patricia paused. For appearances, you understand, right? Appearances. The only reason any of this existed. After Patricia left, Sloane collapsed onto the bed and stared at the ceiling. Somewhere in this massive penthouse, Declan was working. She could hear the faint murmur of his voice through the walls, sharp, commanding, completely in control. She wondered if he ever wasn't in control. Her phone buzzed. Nadia, how's the palace? Sloane, I have a bathroom bigger than my old kitchen. Nadia, living the dream. Has Ice King defrosted yet? Sloane, he's in a conference call. I haven't seen him since I arrived. Nadia, typical. Want me to come kidnap you for lunch? Sloane, can't. Have to unpack. And apparently we have mandatory dinner at 7. Nadia, we have mandatory dinner is the least romantic thing I've ever heard. This fake marriage is already more functional than my parents' real one. Sloane smiled despite herself and started unpacking. 6 o'clock came too quickly. She'd managed to unpack 3 boxes when she realized she had no idea what to wear to dinner with her fake husband in his intimidating penthouse. Jeans seemed too casual. Her work clothes seemed too formal. Everything else she owned was either gym clothes or pajamas. She settled on black pants and a simple cream sweater, hoping it hit the sweet spot between I live here and I'm trying too hard. At 6:58, she emerged from her room to find Declan already at the dining table, reading something on his iPad. He changed out of his suit into dark jeans and a charcoal Henley that made him look unfairly attractive and significantly less robotic. He glanced up. You found everything all right? Yes, Patricia was very helpful. Sloane slid into the chair across from him, feeling like she was attending a business dinner rather than eating at home. The table could easily seat 12. They sat at opposite ends like strangers at a conference. Patricia appeared with 2 plates, some kind of grilled fish with roasted vegetables that looked and smelled incredible. Chef Marcus prepared sea bass tonight, she said. Enjoy. Then she vanished, leaving them alone. They ate in silence for approximately 30 seconds before Sloane couldn't take it anymore.
So she said, do we just not talk? Is that how this works? Declan set down his fork with position. What would you like to discuss? I don't know. Normal dinner conversation. How was your day? What's new? Literally anything that doesn't make this feel like a deposition. Something flickered across his face. Annoyance? Amusement? With Declan, it was impossible to tell. My day was productive. 3 conference calls, 2 contract negotiations, 1 very tedious meeting with our legal team about regulatory compliance. He picked up his fork again. How was yours? I moved into my fake husband's penthouse and had an existential crisis about my life choices. Pretty standard Tuesday. The corner of his mouth twitched. Wednesday? What? It's Wednesday, right? Sloane stabbed a piece of asparagus. I've lost track of days. That's healthy. They lapsed back into silence. The fish was delicious. The silence was excruciating. We need to establish some ground rules, Declan said finally. Okay, first, we maintain separate schedules as much as possible. I leave for the office at 6:30. I return around 7 most evenings. I work from home on Sunday mornings. Sloane nodded, mentally cataloging the information. Second, we have dinner together at least 4 times a week. Pinyetin will expect us to seem connected. We need to be able to reference shared meals, conversations. The details matter. 4 times a week, she repeated. Third, physical affection in public is necessary but should be kept minimal. Hand-holding, perhaps an arm around your waist, nothing that would make either of us uncomfortable. The clinical way he discussed touching her made Sloane want to laugh and cry simultaneously. Got it. Minimal physical contact. Anything else? Yes. Declan set down his fork and looked at her directly. We don't lie to each other. Whatever happens with Pinyetin, with the company, with this arrangement, we're honest. No surprises. Agreed. The intensity in his eyes caught her off guard. This wasn't the CEO talking. This was something else. Something almost vulnerable. Agreed, she said quietly. He nodded and returned to his meal. the moment evaporating as quickly as it had appeared. The Pinyetan dinner is Saturday, he continued in his normal business-like tone. That gives us 2 days to prepare. We need a convincing story about how we met, when we got married, why we kept it private. I've been thinking about that. Sloane pulled out her phone where she'd been drafting notes. We met 3 years ago when I started at the firm. We kept our relationship secret because of company policy about workplace relationships. We got married in a private ceremony 6 months ago. Too recent. Make it 8 months. More believable that we're stable. Fine. 8 months. We kept it quiet because you value privacy and I didn't want people thinking I got promoted because of nepotism. Declan considered this good. That's consistent with both our personalities. What about the proposal? You proposed during a weekend trip to Vancouver. Somewhere private. Nothing flashy. I would never do anything flashy. Exactly. That's why it's believable. Sloane scrolled through her notes. We should also establish some personal details. Favorite foods, pet peeves, that kind of thing. Pettin will ask. Smart. Declan pulled out his own phone. Coffee preferences. Black with 1 sugar. You? Espresso. Double shot. Of course you drink espresso, Sloane muttered. What does that mean? It means you're exactly the kind of person who would drink the most concentrated, efficient form of coffee possible. He almost smiled. Almost. I'll take that as a compliment. Favorite food. Thai food. Anything spicy. You? I don't have a favorite. Sloane stared at him. Everyone has a favorite food. I eat for fuel, not enjoyment. That's the saddest thing I've ever heard. It's practical. It's depressing. She leaned forward. Come on, there has to be something you actually enjoy eating. Declan was quiet for a moment, looking almost uncomfortable. My mother used to make this lemon pasta when I was young, before he cut himself off. It doesn't matter. But it did matter. That brief flash of something real, something human mattered more than Sloane wanted to admit. Lemon pasta, she said softly. I'll remember that. He met her eyes, and for a second the corporate armor cracked just enough for her to see the person underneath. Then it was gone, sealed back up tight. We should practice, he said, all business again. Physical contact so it looks natural. On Saturday. Sloane's heart did something complicated in her chest. Practice how? Declan stood and walked around the table, extending his hand. Dance with me. There's no music. Pretend. She took his hand and let him pull her up. His other hand settled on her waist, warm through her sweater. They stood there in the middle of his absurdly large dining room, swaying slightly to music that didn't exist. This is ridiculous, Sloane whispered. This is practice, he corrected. On Saturday, Pettin will expect us to look comfortable together. We need to be able to do this without looking like hostages. I don't look like a hostage. You look terrified. I am terrified. You're terrifying. I'm your husband, he said, and something about the way he said it made her breath catch. They moved in slow circles, and gradually Sloane felt herself relax. Declan was a good dancer. Of course he was. The man was annoyingly competent in everything. His hand on her waist was steady, grounding. Better, he murmured. See, not so terrible. The jury's still out, she said, but there was no heat in it. They danced until the sun set outside the windows, painting the city in orange and gold until Sloane forgot to count the seconds, until it almost felt real. Almost. When they finally separated, Declan cleared his throat. That should suffice for now. Right. For now, I have work to finish. Feel free to use any of the common areas, the library, the media room, everything except my office. Got it. No snooping in the forbidden CEO lair. He shot her a look that might have been amusement. Good night, Sloane. Good night, Declan. She watched him disappear down the hallway, then stood alone in the dining room, her waist still warm where his hand had been. This was going to be much more complicated than she'd thought. Thursday morning, Sloane woke up to the smell of coffee and the distant sound of someone on a phone call. She checked her phone. 6:47 a.m. Declan had already left for the office, but apparently his espresso machine was still working overtime. She padded into the kitchen in her pajamas, flannel pants and an oversized NYU t-shirt, and found a fresh pot of coffee waiting. Not espresso, regular coffee, with a note in precise handwriting propped against the machine. Made extra. Figured you'd need it. D. Sloane stared at the note for a full minute. Declan Rhodes had made her coffee. The man who treated emotions like spreadsheet errors had done something thoughtful. She poured herself a cup and tried not to read too much into it. By the time she arrived at the office 2 hours later, the entire floor was buzzing with the kind of chaotic energy that usually meant something had gone catastrophically wrong. "What happened?" Sloane asked Marcus Chen, one of the junior analysts, as she passed his desk. "Peyton moved the dinner up," Marcus said without looking up from his screen. "It's tonight. Rhodes has been on the warpath since 6 a.m. Sloane's coffee turned to ice in her stomach. Tonight? It was supposed to be Saturday. Yeah, well, apparently Peyton's flying to Tokyo Saturday morning and decided tonight works better for his schedule. Marcus finally glanced up. "You didn't know? I figured Rhodes would have told you first." "Right, of course. We just had a communication issue this morning." Sloane forced a smile and headed toward Declan's office before Marcus could ask more questions. She found Declan behind his desk, jaw tight, typing with the kind of aggressive precision that suggests that he wanted to strangle his keyboard. "You made me coffee this morning," she said instead of hello. He looked up, clearly thrown by the non sequitur. "Yes, that was nice. It was practical. You can't function without caffeine. I need you functional." But there was something in his eyes that suggested it might have been more than just practical. "Marcus said the dinner's tonight." "Yes, Peyton's assistant called at 5:30 this morning." Declan's fingers stopped typing. "I tried to call you. You were asleep."
It's fine. We're ready. We have our story. We have a story. We don't have chemistry. He stood, walked around the desk. We need to sell this, Sloane. Petton's not stupid. If we look like strangers playing house, he'll know. So what do you want to do? More dancing practice in the middle of your office? No. He checked his watch. I'm canceling my afternoon meetings. We're going shopping. Shopping? You need a dress. I need to make sure we look like a couple who actually chose to be together. He grabbed his jacket. Come on. An hour later, Sloane found herself in a private shopping suite at Nordstrom, while a consultant named Miranda brought in dresses that cost more than Sloane's monthly rent. Declan sat in a leather chair with his laptop, supposedly working, but Sloane noticed he glanced up every time she emerged from the dressing room. "Too formal," he said when she showed him a black floor-length gown. "Too casual when she tried a cocktail dress. Too—" He paused when she stepped out in a deep emerald dress that hugged her curves and fell just above her knees. "That's the one." Sloane turned to check herself in the mirror. "No, that's the one." His voice had gone slightly rough. "Green suits you." Miranda appeared with jewelry options, and before Sloane could protest, Declan was fastening a delicate gold necklace around her neck. His fingers brushed the nape of her neck, and she shivered. "Cold?" he asked, his breath warm against her ear. "No," she managed. His hands lingered for just a moment, too long, before he stepped back. "Perfect. We'll take it. And those shoes." He pointed to a pair of gold heels Miranda had suggested. "Declan, this is too much." "It's necessary." He was already pulling out his credit card. "Petton will notice every detail. You need to look like someone I'd marry." The words stung more than they should have. After shopping, they had 4 hours before the dinner. "We should eat something," Declan said as they walked back to his car. "You get shaky when you don't eat." "How do you know that?" "I notice things." He opened the passenger door for her, a gesture so automatic she wondered if he even realized he'd done it. "There's a bistro nearby, quiet. We can go over our story one more time." The bistro was intimate, with small tables and soft lighting. They sat in a corner booth, and Sloane realized this looked exactly like a couple on a date. Maybe that was the point. "Tell me how we met," Declan said after they'd ordered. 3 years ago, my first day at Rhodes & Associates. You were running late to a meeting and spilled coffee on me in the elevator." His eyebrow rose. "I spilled coffee on you? It makes you seem human. Women love that. I've never spilled coffee in my life." "Well, in our story, you did. And—"
"You were mortified, insisted on buying me a new shirt, and then we started talking. You realized I was joining the firm, You asked me to dinner to apologize properly. One dinner became two, two became more. Declan leaned back, studying her. You're good at this. The lying. I'm not lying. I'm storytelling. There's a difference, is there? Their food arrived. Salads that Sloane barely tasted. She was too aware of Declan across from her, the way he watched her like she was a puzzle he needed to solve. Why did you agree to this? She asked suddenly. Really, you could have fired me, found another way to handle Peyton. Why go through all of this? Declan was quiet for a long moment, his fingers tracing the condensation on his water glass. Because you were right, he said finally. Peyton was being inappropriate. You shouldn't have had to lie to protect yourself. And, he paused, I'm tired of everything being transactional. Maybe this is transactional too, but at least we're both getting something out of it. What are you getting? He met her eyes. I haven't figured that out yet. The air between them felt charged, heavy with things neither of them were saying. Sloane's phone buzzed. Nadia, good luck tonight. Try not to fall for your fake husband. Too late, Sloane thought, then immediately shoved the thought away. Back at the penthouse, they got ready in separate rooms. Sloane took her time with hair and makeup, using the expensive products Patricia had stocked in her bathroom. The emerald dress fit perfectly. The gold heels made her legs look longer than they actually were. She looked like someone who belonged in Declan's world. She looked like his wife. When she emerged, Declan was waiting in the living room, adjusting his cufflinks. He wore a charcoal suit that made him look like he'd stepped out of a magazine spread. He turned when he heard her heels on the marble floor. Whatever he'd been about to say died on his lips. You look, he cleared his throat. Good. You look good. You clean up okay too, she said, trying to keep her voice light. He crossed to her, pulled something from his pocket. One more thing. A wedding band. Simple, elegant platinum to match her engagement ring. I got it this afternoon, he explained, while you were trying on dresses. He took her left hand and slid it on. Then he held up his own left hand, showing her an identical band already on his finger. When did you? I've been wearing it since yesterday. Seemed important. They stood there, hands linked, matching rings catching the light. Ready? He asked. No, Sloane thought, not even a little bit. Absolutely, she said. The car service arrived at 6:30. During the drive to the Four Seasons, Declan briefed her on Peyton's background, his family, his business history. But halfway through, he stopped talking and just looked at her. What? Sloane asked. You're nervous. I'm terrified. Don't be. His hand found hers in the dark of the car, fingers lacing together. You're the smartest person I've ever worked with. You can handle Richard Peyton with your eyes closed. The compliment landed somewhere soft in her chest. You know, she said quietly, for someone who claims not to do emotions, you're pretty good at the encouragement thing. Maybe I'm learning. His thumb traced circles on the back of her hand. From you. The car pulled up to the hotel entrance. Bright lights, cameras. A charity event meant press coverage. Remember, Declan murmured as the driver opened the door, we're in love. We chose this. We're happy. He stepped out first, then extended his hand to help her out of the car. The moment her heels hit the red carpet, his arm wrapped around her waist, pulling her close. Smile, he whispered against her temple. We're newlyweds, remember? She smiled. He smiled back. And for just a moment, standing there in the flash of cameras with Declan's arm around her and his ring on her finger, it didn't feel like pretending at all. They walked into the Four Seasons together, and Sloane's fake marriage became very, very public. The Four Seasons ballroom sparkled like someone had trapped a constellation inside. Crystal chandeliers, ice sculptures, a string quartet playing something classical and expensive sounding. Seattle's elite mingled in designer gowns and tailored suits, champagne glasses in hand, discussing mergers and stock portfolios like they were talking about the weather. Sloane had never felt more out of place in her life. Breathe, Declan murmured, his hand steady on her lower back. You belong here. I really don't. You're my wife. That means you belong anywhere I do. He said it like a fact, not a comfort, but somehow it worked. They'd barely made it 10 feet into the room when a booming voice cut through the classical music. Declan, you actually came.
Richard Peaton materialized from the crowd like a well-dressed ghost. At 72, he moved with the energy of a man 20 years younger. Silver hair perfectly styled, custom tuxedo fitted to hide the evidence of too many business dinners. "Richard!" Declan's handshake was firm, professional. "Thank you for the invitation. May I introduce my wife, Sloane?" Peaton's eyes lit up with something that made Sloane's skin crawl. "Ah, yes, the brilliant young woman from the holiday party. Though you failed to mention you'd already claimed her, you sly, sly dog." Declan's hand tightened almost imperceptibly on Sloane's waist. "We prefer to keep our personal life private." "Clearly." Peaton took Sloane's hand and instead of shaking it, brought it to his lips. His eyes caught on the massive engagement ring. Exquisite taste, Rhodes, in business and in women. Sloane resisted the urge to wipe her hand on her dress. "Mr. Peaton, it's lovely to see you again. Please call me Richard. We're practically family now that you'll be managing my account." He gestured toward the bar. "Let me buy you both a drink. We have much to discuss." The next hour was a master class in corporate theater. Peaton held court at a high-top table near the windows, introducing them to what felt like every wealthy person in Seattle. Each introduction came with a story about his business empire, his 3 ex-wives, or his collection of vintage cars. Declan played his part perfectly, attentive but not overeager, his hand never leaving Sloane's waist or the small of her back. Every so often he'd lean in to whisper something in her ear. Sometimes it was relevant. That's the CEO of Bellwether Techs. Smile. Sometimes it wasn't. If Peaton mentions his yacht one more time, I'm walking into the ocean. The not relevant whispers made it harder to remember this was fake. "So, tell me," Peaton said during a lull in conversation, his 4th scotch of the evening making him bolder, "how did Rhodes convince you to marry him? The man's married to his work. I've known him for 5 years and never seen him with a date." Sloane felt Declan tense beside her. "Actually," she said, launching into their rehearsed story, "he spilled coffee on me, first day at the firm, completely mortified, insisted on replacing my shirt." Peaton laughed. "Rhodes clumsy? I don't believe it." "I was distracted," Declan said smoothly, his thumb tracing circles on Sloane's hip in a way that definitely wasn't part of the rehearsal. "She walked into the elevator and I forgot how to function like a normal human being." The way he said it, with just enough sheepishness, just enough sincerity, made Sloane's heart do something complicated. "Love at first sight?" Peaton pressed. "Something like that." Declan looked at Sloane and the intensity in his eyes felt dangerous. "Though it took me 3 months to work up the courage to ask her to dinner." 3 months, Peaton whistled. Not very decisive for a CEO. "Some things are worth the wait." Declan's hand moved to Sloane's, fingers lacing together. "And some people are worth being patient for." This wasn't the script. They'd agreed on a straightforward story. Coffee, dinner, relationship. Not this, not the way he was looking at her like she was the only person in the room. Sloane's phone buzzed in her clutch. She ignored it. "Well," Peaton raised his glass, "to patience and to excellent partnerships, both personal and professional. Sloane, my dear, I want
You and Declan to come to my estate in the San Juans next month. Let's discuss the account details properly. Maybe do some sailing." "We'd be honored," Declan said before Sloane could respond. More people approached their table. More introductions, more performances. Somewhere around the 2-hour mark, Peyton got pulled into a conversation about political donations, and Declan used the opportunity to guide Sloane toward the balcony. The night air was cool against her skin. Downtown Seattle glittered below them. The Space Needle lit up in the distance. "You okay?" Declan asked, finally releasing her waist. Sloane realized she missed the contact immediately. "I think so. Did we pull it off?" "You were perfect." He loosened his tie slightly, the first crack in his composure all evening. "The coffee story was brilliant. You made me sound almost human. You had some good improvisation, too. Forgot how to function like a normal human being," she quoted him, trying to keep her voice light. "Very smooth." It felt appropriate. He turned to look at the city instead of her. "Peyton bought it. That's what matters." "Right, that's what matters." They stood in silence, the sounds of the party muted behind the glass doors. "Your phone's been buzzing," Declan said, finally. Sloane pulled it out. 3 texts from Nadia. "Nadia, just saw you on Seattle Social Scene's Instagram story. Nadia, you and Declan look very convincing. Nadia, too convincing. We need to talk." Sloane shoved the phone back in her clutch. "Everything all right?" Declan asked. "Fine, just Nadia being Nadia." Before he could respond, the balcony door opened. A woman in her 40s stepped out, elegant in navy silk, her eyes sharp and assessing. "Declan Rhodes," she said. "I thought that was you." Declan's entire body went rigid. "Victoria." The woman's smile was cold. "It's been, what, 2 years? You look well. Marriage agrees with you, apparently." Her eyes flicked to Sloane with undisguised curiosity. "I'm Victoria Hartwell, Declan's ex-fiancée." The word ex-fiancée landed like a grenade. Sloane kept her expression neutral through sheer force of will. "Sloane Rhodes, his wife. Yes, I saw the announcement in the business section. Quite a surprise. Declan was always so adamant about keeping his personal and professional lives separate." Victoria's tone suggested she knew exactly how hypocritical that sounded coming from an ex-fiancé. "People change," Declan said tersely. "Apparently." Victoria sipped her champagne. "Well, congratulations. I hope you have better luck than I did. Sloane's a wonderful businessman, but relationships require actual emotional availability, something he's not particularly skilled at." "Victoria," Declan's voice carried a warning. "I'm just being honest." She set down her glass. "Anyway, I should get back. Lovely
To meet you, Sloane." "Declan." She nodded and disappeared back into the ballroom. The silence on the balcony felt suffocating. "So," Sloane said carefully, "ex-fiancé? That's a fun detail you forgot to mention." "It was 3 years ago. It's not relevant." "Not relevant?" "Declan, we're supposed to be married. Don't you think I should know about major past relationships?" "It didn't work out. That's all you need to know." "That's not—" Sloane stopped, took a breath. "Fine. Okay. Keep your secrets. But if we're going to sell this to Penton, I need to actually know things about you. Real things. Not just your coffee order and your mother's lemon pasta recipe." Declan turned to face her fully, jaw tight. "You want real things? Fine. Victoria and I got engaged because it made sense on paper. 2 successful people, compatible schedules, mutual respect. Except she wanted someone who could give her emotional intimacy and vulnerability, and I wanted someone who understood that my work comes first. We realized 6 months before the wedding that we were making a massive mistake. She moved to San Francisco, I stayed here. We haven't spoken in 2 years until tonight. There. Real enough for you?" His words were sharp, defensive, but underneath Sloane heard something else. Pain, regret, maybe even shame. "That sounds lonely," she said quietly. "It's practical. It's sad. It's realistic. People like me don't get fairy tale endings, Sloane. We get profitable partnerships and mutual benefit." "And what am I? A profitable partnership?" Declan opened his mouth, closed it. For the first time since she'd met him, he looked genuinely lost. "I don't know," he admitted finally. "I thought I did, but—" The balcony door opened again. Penton appeared, slightly unsteady on his feet. "There you are. Come inside, you two. They're starting the auction, and I have my eye on a vintage Bordeaux that would pair beautifully with the victory dinner we'll have after you sign my account." He beamed at them. "You make a handsome couple. Really, it's refreshing to see young people who actually like each other." If only he knew. They followed Penton back inside. Declan's hand found Sloane again, but this time it felt different. Less performance, more anchor. The auction was everything Sloane had expected from rich people spending money, absurd and excessive. A golf weekend went for $15,000, a private wine tour for $30,000. Penton won his Bordeaux for $45,000 and looked thrilled about it. By the time they escaped at 11 p.m., Sloane's feet ached from the heels, her face hurt from smiling. The car ride home was quiet. Declan stared at the window, still processing the Victoria encounter. Sloane studied his reflection in the glass. "For what it's worth," she said eventually, "I don't think you're incapable of emotional intimacy." He looked at her. No, I think you're scared of it. There's a difference. And what makes you such an expert on what I'm scared of? Because I'm scared of it too." The admission surprised her as much as it clearly surprised him. Getting close to people, letting them see the messy parts, risking getting hurt. It's terrifying. So I get it. The walls, the control, the pretending everything is a transaction. Declan was quiet for a long moment. "This is a transaction," he said finally, but his voice lacked conviction. "Is it?" He didn't answer. Back at the penthouse, they stood in the elevator, the silence heavy with everything they weren't saying. When the doors opened, Declan walked her to her bedroom door like they were teenagers on a first date. "You were incredible tonight." "So were you." Penton's completely convinced. The account is as good as ours. Mission accomplished. Neither of them moved. "Sloane, good night, Declan." She couldn't hear whatever he was about to say. Not tonight, not when her defenses were this low and his eyes looked that vulnerable.
She slipped into a room and closed the door before she could do something stupid like kiss her fake husband and mean it. Sloane didn't sleep. She lay in her enormous bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of the evening. Declan's hand on her waist, the way he'd looked at her when he talked about forgetting how to function. Victoria's cold smile and colder words. People like me don't get fairy tale endings. The phrase haunted her, not because Victoria had said it to hurt him, but because Declan had believed it, had built his entire life around that belief. At 3 a.m., she gave up on sleep and padded to the kitchen for water. The light was already on. Declan sat at the kitchen island in sweatpants and a faded Columbia University t-shirt, the most casual she'd ever seen him, with his laptop open and a mug of what was probably his 5th espresso of the night. He looked up when she entered, and she noticed the shadows under his eyes. Can't sleep either? Too much champagne, too many thoughts. She grabbed a glass from the cabinet. What's your excuse? Same, minus the champagne. He closed the laptop with deliberate care. I owe you an apology. Sloane turned to face him, water forgotten. For what, Victoria? I should have told you about her before tonight. It was unfair to blindside you like that. Declan, we've been fake married for 3 days. I don't exactly have a right to your entire romantic history. But you do have a right to information that affects our arrangement. Victoria showing up, saying those things. It could
Have blown our cover if you hadn't handled it so gracefully. Sloane set down her glass and moved closer, leaning against the counter across from him. Is that what this is about? Protecting the cover story? He was quiet for a moment, his fingers tracing the rim of his mug in a nervous pattern she was beginning to recognize. No, it's about the fact that I don't like lying to you, even by omission, even about things that happened years ago. Then don't. No more omissions, no more walls. She held his gaze. Just honesty, even if it's messy. I'm not good at messy. Yeah, I've noticed, but maybe you could try? Declan looked at her, really looked at her, and something shifted in his expression. The corporate mask cracked, and underneath was someone vulnerable and uncertain. You want honesty? Fine. He stood, started pacing the length of the kitchen like he couldn't sit still anymore. Victoria was right about me. I'm terrible at relationships. I prioritize work over people. I struggle with vulnerability. I analyze everything until I've killed whatever spontaneity or joy might have existed. That's why she left. That's why every relationship I've ever had has failed. And yet, you're sitting here at 3 a.m, unable to sleep, drinking espresso and overthinking. Sloane watched him pace. Sounds pretty emotionally invested to me. That's different. How? He stopped pacing, ran both hands through his hair in frustration. Because this isn't... He stopped himself, jaw tight. This was supposed to be simple, a business arrangement. But you... But I what? You ask about my mother's pasta. You notice when I'm anxious. You call me out when I'm being ridiculous. You make me laugh at myself. You make me want things I convinced myself I didn't need. Sloane's heart hammered against her ribs. What things? This, he gestured between them, his usual precision abandoned for something raw and genuine. Whatever this is, real dinners, not business meals, someone who knows I make coffee for them before I leave for work, someone who doesn't think I'm broken just because I'm not naturally demonstrative, someone who looks at me like I'm more than just a competent CEO. Declan. And the worst part? He laughed bitterly. The absolute worst part is knowing that when this is over, when we've secured Peyton and filed for our fake divorce and gone back to our normal lives, I'm going to miss you. I'm going to walk into this kitchen and expect to see you standing there in your ridiculous pajamas with your terrible bed hair, and you won't be there. And I hate that, because missing people, needing people, that's messy and unpredictable and completely inefficient. The raw honesty in his voice cracked something open in Sloane's chest. She moved toward him, closing the distance in 3 steps. You're an idiot, she said. He blinked, clearly thrown. Excuse me? You heard me. You're an idiot. Brilliant, competent, emotionally constipated idiot. She grabbed the front of his t-shirt, pulling him closer. Because I'm not going anywhere. There is no when this is over. There's just this, us, whatever we want it to be. Sloane, we signed a contract. Screw the contract. She tightened her grip on his shirt. I don't want a fake marriage anymore. Declan, I want the real thing. Messy dinners where we actually talk about our days. Mornings where you make me coffee not because it's practical, but because you want to. Fights about your ridiculous work hours. Making up after those fights. All of it. The whole chaotic, imperfect, terrifying package. That's insane, he breathed, but his hands were already on her waist, pulling her against him. Probably,
but I learned from the best. She looked up at him, seeing every emotion he was trying to hide flicker across his face. So what do you say, Mr. Rhodes? Want to turn our fake marriage into a real one? For 3 seconds, Declan just stared at her. His hands trembled slightly on her waist. His breathing was uneven. And then he kissed her. Not like at the courthouse, clinical and brief and bloodless. This was desperate and hungry, and 3 days of pent-up tension exploding all at once. His hands tangled in her hair. She fisted both hands in his shirt, pulling him closer. They stumbled backward until her back hit the counter, and she didn't care because Declan Rhodes was kissing her like she was oxygen and he'd been drowning. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his forehead rested against hers. "I don't know how to do this," he admitted quietly. "The real relationship thing. I'll probably mess it up. I'll get too focused on work and forget date nights. I'll overthink everything. I'll say the wrong thing at the wrong time. Good thing I'm patient," she smiled against his lips. "And good thing we're already married. Skips all that awkward will he propose anxiety." He laughed, actual laughter, warm and unguarded and utterly unlike the controlled CEO she'd known for 3 years. Very efficient. "See, I'm learning from you too." He kissed her again. Softer this time, slower, like they had all the time in the world, like this was the beginning of something instead of the end. "I'm keeping the prenup clause about the lemon pasta recipe," he murmured against her mouth. "That's non-negotiable. Deal. But I'm adding a clause about mandatory date nights at least twice a month." "Acceptable." His thumb traced her cheekbone with devastating gentleness. "And morning coffee, obviously." "And," he paused, pulled back slightly to look at her properly, "and patience with me, when I inevitably retreat into work mode."
Forget to communicate or analyze our relationship to death. I'm going to need you to call me out, to pull me back, to remind me that this matters more than any deal or contract. Declan, she cupped his face with both hands. I fell for you because of who you are, not despite it. The overthinking, the control issues, the espresso addiction, all of it. You don't have to change who you are. You just have to let me in. Let me be part of it. His eyes were suspiciously bright. I can do that, I think, with practice. We have time. She kissed him gently. Lots of time. They stood there in the kitchen as the city began to wake outside the windows. The sky shifted from black to deep blue to pale pink, and for the first time in longer than he could remember, Declan Rhodes wasn't thinking about work or contracts or strategic planning. He was just present with her, and it felt right. The next morning, technically later that same morning, Sloane woke up in her own bed with sunlight streaming through the windows and the smell of coffee drifting down the hallway. She found Declan in the kitchen, already dressed for work, but instead of his usual rigid posture at his laptop, he was making breakfast. "You cook?" she asked, still half asleep. "I'm attempting to cook. There's a difference." He gestured to the stove where eggs were scrambling. "I figured after last night we should probably eat something other than espresso and emotional confessions." She laughed and wrapped her arms around him from behind. "This is nice. Don't get used to it. I have a 7:30 meeting. But you're making breakfast anyway. I'm trying new things. You're a bad influence." But he turned in her arms and kissed her forehead. "How do you like your eggs? Scrambled is perfect." They ate at the counter, shoulders touching, sharing the morning paper like an actual couple, like this was normal, like they did this every day. "I have to tell Nadia," Sloane said eventually. "She's going to lose her mind. Does she think I'm still incapable of human emotion? She thinks you're thawing like a very expensive, very controlled popsicle." Declan choked on his coffee. "A popsicle?" Her words, not mine. Sloane grinned. "Though I think after I tell her about last night, she'll upgrade you to at least partially human." How generous. He checked his watch, that automatic nervous gesture. "I really do have to go. But tonight, dinner, actual dinner, just us. No Peloton, no performance, no pretending. It's a date. It's our first real date as a real couple. Technically our millionth date if you count all the fake ones." He kissed her long and thorough until she forgot what they were talking about. "I'll see you tonight, Mrs. Rhodes."
That's Miss Mitchell Rhodes to you. My apologies, Miss Mitchell Rhodes. He kissed her again. Don't work too hard today, says the man with back-to-back meetings until 7 p.m. I'm canceling the last 2. I have something more important to do. After he left, Sloane sat in the empty kitchen with her coffee and pulled out her phone. Sloane, emergency lunch. Today, I have news. Nadia, if you're pregnant, I'm going to lose it. Sloane, not pregnant. Better. Nadia, better than pregnant? Did Peloton double his investment? Sloane, Nadia, oh my God, did you actually fall for Ice King? Sloane, 12:30, our usual place. Bring wine. Nadia, it's noon on a Thursday. Sloane, bring wine. Lunch with Nadia was exactly as chaotic as expected. They sat at their favorite bistro in Capitol Hill, and before Sloane could even start the story, Nadia was already 3 questions deep. When did it happen? How did it happen? Did he actually say the words, I love you, or did he send you a memo about optimal relationship parameters? He kissed me in the kitchen at 3 a.m. after a semi-dramatic emotional confession. Nadia's eyes went wide. Details, now, all of them. Sloane told her everything. The Peloton dinner, Victoria, the balcony confrontation, the 3 a.m. kitchen scene. By the time she finished, Nadia had gone through half a bottle of wine and looked like she might cry. That's the most romantic thing I've ever heard, Nadia said, and I read romance novels for fun. Declan freaking Rhodes had an emotional breakthrough in the kitchen. I need this documented. Please don't make this weird. Too late. It's already weird. You married your boss as a fake arrangement and actually fell in love. That's a romance novel plot. I'm aware. So what happens now? You just stay married, live happily ever after? Does he still call you Mr. Rhodes in the office? I haven't thought that far ahead. We're taking it one day at a time. Nadia studied her friend's face. You're happy, genuinely happy. I haven't seen you like this in years. I am happy. It's terrifying. Love usually is, Nadia said, raising her glass to fake marriages that turn real and to ice kings who finally thaw. Sloane clinked her glass against Nadia's. To new beginnings. That evening, Declan came home at exactly 7 p.m. with a bag from her favorite Thai restaurant. I thought we could eat on the balcony, he said, watch the sunset, talk without any pressure or performance. They set up on the outdoor furniture, Seattle spreading out below them in a glittering carpet of lights. The food was perfect, spicy and familiar, and exactly what Sloane hadn't realized she'd needed. I've been thinking, Declan said after they'd eaten. Dangerous. About what you said about this being real. He set down his fork, turned to face her fully. I want to do this properly. Not the business arrangement version, the actual relationship version. What does that mean?
Look like. I don't know exactly. But I think it starts with me telling you things I don't tell anyone else. Being vulnerable, even when it's uncomfortable. Making time for us that isn't about work or deals or maintaining appearances. Sloane reached for his hand. I'd like that. I should probably also tell you that I talked to my lawyer today. Her stomach dropped. About the divorce. About tearing up the prenup. Declan, I don't want our marriage to have an expiration date. I don't want exit strategies or contingency plans. I just want you, for as long as you'll have me. Sloane's eyes stung. That might be the most romantic thing you've ever said. I'm practicing. Keep practicing. You're getting really good at this. They sat together as the sky turned from blue to orange to deep purple. And somewhere between dinner and dessert, Sloane realized this was what she'd been looking for all along. Not the fairy tale wedding or the grand gestures, just this. Someone who showed up, someone who tried, someone who made her coffee in the morning and brought home Thai food at night, and was willing to tear up legal documents because he wanted to choose her every day, not just on paper. I love you, she said suddenly. Declan turned to her, eyes soft. I love you too. Even though you have terrible taste in pajamas and killed every plant Patricia bought for your room. Those succulents were already dying. They were cacti. They're nearly impossible to kill. Well, I'm special. He pulled her into his lap, wrapped his arms around her. You really are. 2 weeks later, Sloane officially moved her belongings from the guest room to Declan's bedroom. It took approximately 3 hours and involved one spreadsheet, which Declan created despite her protests, 2 arguments about closet organization, and one very heated makeout session against the dresser that delayed the process significantly. This is chaos, Declan said, surveying the boxes and clothes scattered across the bedroom. This is what happens when 2 people merge their lives. It's messy. I hate mess. I know, but you love me more than you hate mess, so you're going to deal with it. She threw a sweatshirt at him. That goes in the 3rd drawer. Why the 3rd drawer? Because that's where sweatshirts live. I have a system. She kissed him to stop the system speech. It was becoming her favorite negotiation tactic. By evening, they'd managed to create something resembling organized chaos. Her books on his shelves, her ridiculous collection of coffee mugs in the kitchen, her toothbrush next to his in the bathroom. Small things, domestic things, real things. They ordered pizza and ate it sitting on the bedroom floor surrounded by empty boxes. This is nice, Declan said. Yeah, messy, but nice. Wait until I tell you about my system for organizing the bathroom cabinets, he groaned. Please tell me you have a system. I have a system. It's called Everything Goes Wherever It Fits. That's not a system, that's chaos. And you love me anyway. He looked at her, sitting there in leggings and one of his Columbia t-shirts, hair piled on top of her head, sauce on her chin. She was a disaster. She was chaos incarnate. She was everything he'd never known he needed. I really do, he said. 3 months later, the Palatine account was officially signed, sealed, and secured. Sloane sat in their office because she'd been promoted to senior partner, and they now shared the corner space with the best view, reviewing the final contract. $50 million, the biggest deal Rhodes & Associates had ever closed. And it had all started with a lie at a corporate party. Declan walked in with 2 cups of coffee and a stack of paperwork. Black with 1 sugar, he said, handing her the cup. You know you don't have to keep bringing me coffee now that we're actually married and I work 10 feet away from you. I know. He kissed the top of her head. I want to. Her phone buzzed. Nadia, lunch tomorrow. I need details about the San Juan's trip. Sloane. Can do. Fair warning, Declan only fell off the boat once, not twice, and he's sensitive about it. Nadia. Tell me he actually fell off the boat. Sloane. Rogue wave. He was very dignified about the whole thing. Nadia. I'm dying. See you tomorrow. Nadia? Declan asked, settling into the chair beside her desk. Yep, she wants lunch details about our trip. Tell her the sailing was excellent and Peloton's estate is obscenely large. I'll tell her you only fell off once and you were very brave about it. It was a rogue wave and I was securing the mainsail. Sure you were. She sat down her coffee and swiveled her chair to face him. Did I ever tell you this might be my favorite part of the day? Which part? This coffee. You, quiet moments before the chaos starts, us being able to work together without it being weird. Something soft crossed his face. That expression she'd learned meant he was feeling things he didn't quite have words for yet. Mine too. Really. The great Declan Rhodes has a favorite non-work thing. I have several now, thanks to you. He reached for her hand. Coffee with my wife, dinner with my wife, waking up next to my wife and watching her try to kill the alarm clock. It's too loud. It's a standard alarm. It's aggressive. He laughed and pulled her closer, navigating around the desk chair with the kind of precision that made her smile. How about this? Tonight we leave at 5. No working late. We go to that new Italian place you've been wanting to try. Declan Rhodes leaving work at 5 p.m.? Are you feeling okay? I'm learning. Work-life balance, date nights, all that stuff you talk about.
Keep lecturing me about I don't lecture. You absolutely lecture, but I love it. He kissed her. So, 5 o'clock Italian, maybe a movie after? You hate movie theaters. I'm expanding my horizons. Who are you and what have you done with my husband? He's learning that some things are worth being uncomfortable for. He checked his watch, that automatic gesture that made her smile now instead of making her nervous. I have a meeting in 10 minutes, but tonight is ours. Deal. He kissed her once more and headed for the door, then paused. Sloane, yeah? Thank you for not giving up on me, for pushing me to be better, for making me want to try. Her heart squeezed. Always. After he left, she sat with her coffee and looked out at the city, Seattle, in December,
gray and drizzly, but somehow still beautiful. A year ago, she'd been a junior account manager, terrified of her boss and trying to navigate corporate politics. Now, she was a senior partner, married to that same boss, and happier than she ever thought possible. Life was weird, but it was also pretty wonderful. 6 months later, epilogue. The new apartment, because they decided the penthouse was too much house for two people who were rarely home, smelled like lemon and garlic and something burning. Sloane, I think the pasta might be— I've got it, she called from the kitchen, frantically, stirring a pot that was definitely in danger of becoming inedible. Declan appeared in the doorway, trying not to smile. Want help? I'm fine. I can make lemon pasta. You're burning lemon pasta. It's not burning, it's caramelizing. That's not how pasta works. She pointed the wooden spoon at him. Out. I'm doing this. It's our 6-month wedding anniversary, the real one, not the courthouse one, and I'm making your mom's pasta. He held up his hands in surrender. Okay, I'll go set the table with the good plates. We only have one set of plates, then use those. He retreated, and she heard him in the dining room, probably arranging everything with geometric precision because some habits died hard. 20 minutes later, they sat across from each other at their small dining table, a normal-sized table in a normal-sized apartment in Fremont with mismatched chairs and a view of the Elliott Bay. The pasta was slightly too acidic and definitely overdone, but Declan ate anyway. It's good, he said. It's not your mom's. No, but it's yours. That makes it better. He reached across the table for her hand. And anyway, I like that you tried, that you wanted to make something that mattered to me. Of course I did. You matter to me. I know, I'm just still getting used to that. Sloane squeezed his hand. Well, you better get used to it fast because I'm planning on sticking around for a while. How long is a while? Forever-ish, give or take a few decades. He smiled. That soft smile he only showed her. I can work with that. They finished dinner and Declan insisted on doing dishes while Sloane curled up on their second-hand couch with a glass of wine. So, he said, drawing the last plate, I have something for you. Declan, we said no gifts. It's not a gift, it's more of a proposal. She sat up straight. We're already married. Not that kind of proposal. He pulled a folder from his briefcase because of course he'd brought his briefcase home and handed it to her. Inside were documents for a cat adoption. Sloane's eyes went wide. You're serious? You've been looking at adoption websites for 3 months. Every time you think I'm not paying attention, you're scrolling through photos of cats. He sat down next to her. So yes, I'm serious. We can get a cat. But you said you didn't want pets. You said they were too unpredictable. I said a lot of things before you. Most of them were wrong. He brushed a strand of hair from her face. Besides, you want one, and I want you to be happy, so we're getting a cat. She launched herself at him, nearly knocking him over on the couch. I love you so much. I love you too, even though you're about to bring a chaos agent into our home. Our home. I like when you call it that. It is our home. Our life, our chaos. He kissed her forehead. I wouldn't want it any other way. Not even the organized, controlled, perfectly scheduled version, especially not that version. Turns out, chaos suits me. He pulled back to look at her. As long as it's chaos with you. 2 weeks later, they brought home a gray tabby cat that Sloane had found at the shelter. She wanted to name her Luna or Stella or something appropriately whimsical. Declan had other ideas. We're naming her Dividend, he announced, watching the cat explore their apartment. Absolutely not. She's an investment in our happiness. Dividend makes sense. We're not naming our cat after a financial term. What about portfolio, Declan? Asset. You're impossible. They compromised on Pepper, which satisfied neither of them but made the cat happy, so it stuck. Pepper proceeded to immediately claim Declan's favorite reading chair, knock over 2 coffee mugs, and somehow turned the most controlled man Sloane had ever met into a complete softy, who talked to the cat in baby voices when he thought no one was listening. I heard that, Sloane called from the kitchen one evening. Heard what? Declan appeared, trying to look innocent, with Pepper draped across his shoulders like a furry scarf. You called her precious angel baby. I did not. You absolutely did. If I did, and I'm not admitting anything, it's because you're a terrible influence and I'm allowed to be irrational about our cat. Our cat? Yes. Our cat, our home, our life. He kissed her forehead. I wouldn't want it any other way.
Purring loudly between them. Our everything. Sloane wrapped her arms around him carefully so as not to disturb Pepper. You know, a year ago, if someone had told me I'd be fake married to my boss, then actually married to him, living in Fremont with a cat named Pepper, I'd have thought they were delusional. A year ago, if someone had told me I'd be in love with my account manager and letting a cat sleep in my reading chair, I'd have had them committed. He rested his forehead against hers. But here we are. Here we are, she echoed, happy, terrifyingly so. Good, because I'm not done making your life chaotic. I'm counting on it.